كتاب الله دستوري كتاب الله دستوري وخير الخلق أسوتنا
بسنته جلا نوري لهدي
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something really unusual based on the sources you sent in. It's this massive, 1,400-year-old idea that sounds almost like science fiction. The idea that time itself is speeding up. Yeah, but what really grabbed me about the sources you shared was the twist. It's not cosmology we're talking about, is it? Not astrophysics. This deep dive looks at an interpretation of an old prophecy from the Prophet Muhammad, which argues the speed up is really personal, psychological even. So our mission today is to explore this claim that the feeling we often get, wow, the year passed like a month, that this is actually a pretty terrifying psychological sign, a sign of, a huge spiritual misalignment.
It is, yeah. It's a really profound way of reading the scripture. We're essentially looking at a religious argument, one that connects, believe it or not, the details of our calendars to the deepest consequences for the human spirit. The main claim right off the bat is that this feeling, this perception that time is accelerating, it's linked to us moving away from a sacred system of time, a system supposedly set by God.
Yeah.
And the stakes, well, they couldn't be higher according to this view, the potential loss of our internal free will. Completely.
Wow, okay, that is quite an ominous setup. Let's get specific about the prophecy itself, because the sources detail this acceleration, and it's frankly unbelievable how fast it claims things compress.
Exactly. The prophecy describes it as a kind of spiritual erosion, manifesting through our perception of time. First stage, a whole year will feel like it passed in a month.
Which honestly, some years do feel like that already.
Right. Then it gets faster. A whole month will pass like a week.
Okay.
Then a whole week passes like a single day.
That's incredibly fast. And the final stage, the quickest one.
The final stage. A whole day will pass like the time it takes to just, kindle a fire, a spark.
Whoosh, gone.
It's an almost instantaneous consumption of time. It suggests a state of, absolute spiritual panic.
Okay, let's try and unpack this a bit, because here's the paradox, isn't it? We can probably all agree, subjectively, time feels faster now than when we were kids, maybe. But if a month is blurring into a week in our minds, why isn't the Earth actually spinning faster? The planets haven't changed their orbits.
And this is the crucial point. This is where the source material completely rules out physics, and it grounds the prophecy firmly in this idea of a sacred system. The argument is that time, in this world, is fundamentally tied to the moon. The Quran, they point out, confirms the moon was given so we could count the years, measure time. It's presented as an absolute constant, unchanging.
Meaning the moon is just doing its job. Perfectly, same as always.
Exactly. For thousands of years, that cycle hasn't altered. The full moon arrives when it should. So the actual astronomical length of a month, 29 or 30 days, hasn't changed at all. Therefore, the physical duration is fixed. You can't argue the physics are different. That's their point.
And the sources bring in that interesting anecdote about the Prophet Muhammad to really hammer this home, right? About him going into seclusion for a month.
Yes, that's right. He secluded himself, expecting a full month, but he came out after the 29th day. And he explained, essentially, look, I know the month is sometimes 29 days, sometimes 30.
So it wasn't a guess. It was confirming this divine fixed lunar cycle.
Precisely. And in the source's view, that traditional evidence just locks it down. Physical time, fixed. So the conclusion they draw is, pretty straightforward. It's not the clock on the wall moving faster, it's our internal spiritual perception of time. That's what's accelerating. And it's located, they say, specifically in the heart.
The heart, losing its rhythm.
That's the idea. So then the next question becomes, okay, if the heart's losing its rhythm, what's causing the speeded up perception? And this is where it gets really interesting, because they identify a specific cause. The heart, they argue, is no longer beating in sync with that sacred system of time ordained by Allah, the lunar system.
Right, which brings us to this really stark contrast the sources draw between two opposing calendar systems. On one side, you've got the sacred system. A month is strictly 29 or 30 days, tied to the moon, simple, predictable, God-given.
And on the other side, you have the system the source really goes after, fiercely, the modern Western civilization system. They trace it specifically to the Vatican, to a pope.
Yeah.
And the source, it doesn't mince words, it calls this whole system a load of rubbish.
Wow, hang on. A load of rubbish? That's incredibly strong language for just a calendar. We're talking about the Gregorian calendar here, right?
Yeah.
The one basically the whole world uses for business, travel, everything. Why call that a load of rubbish? What makes it so existentially bad in their view? Is it just leap years or something?
No, it's not really about leap years. The source focuses almost entirely on the variable month lengths. That's the core problem for them. The fact that you can have months with 28 days, 29 in a leap year, 30 or 31 days. That variability, they argue, is the fatal flaw. It breaks the natural harmonic rhythm set by the Creator. It represents, in their eyes, a rejection of divine guidance and putting man-made authority, specifically papal authority, above natural divine law.
So the real spiritual danger isn't the clock's speed, but rather internally accepting this variability, this man-made system, without question.
That's exactly it. The source claims the entire world, including, interestingly, the global Islamic community, has just uncritically accepted this departure. And that uncritical adoption of the variable calendar, that's the break from harmony. That's what causes the internal perception to speed up, the heart to race, spiritually speaking.
Okay, this is where it gets really, really interesting. Because the sources then connect this whole calendar issue, this 31-day month variability, directly to probably the biggest figure of spiritual conflict in this tradition. They link it straight to Dajjal.
Yes, the anti-Messiah figure, the ultimate deceiver in Islamic end times belief. And the consequence, as stated in the source, is very clear. If you notice this feeling in your heart, this acceleration, the year passing like a month, the source says quite bluntly, Dajjal is taking you for a ride.
Dajjal, the master deceiver, is using this feeling of accelerated time to gain control over you.
That's the claim. He's using it.
And where does that ride end? What's the destination? It leads to this really profound and frankly quite scary transformation into what the sources call a jasad. That seems like a really key concept we need to understand. What is a jasad?
A jasad. The sources define it essentially as an automaton, a biological robot almost. They contrast this sharply with what defines a true human being. A human, they say, has three core things. Freedom inside of him, freedom to think, freedom to choose, a self-directed will.
Okay, freedom to think, freedom to choose, self-directed will. And an automaton, a jasad, lacks those?
Exactly, stripped of those freedoms. A jasad is someone who, and this is a direct quote essentially, no longer thinks for yourself, others think for you. And you no longer choose for yourself, others choose for you. You become passive, controlled.
So it's like your internal agency is just gone.
Precisely. The source even gives specific terms for this process of spiritual disarmament. In English, they call it brainwashing. And they also use the French term lavage de cerveau, the washing of the mind.
Lavage de cerveau, washing the mind, turning a human into an automaton. That's a terrifying thought. So this prophecy, it isn't just about time feeling fast. It's fundamentally about spiritual control. If time feels like it's speeding up, that's a symptom that this mind washing might be working, that your internal freedom is slipping away.
That's exactly the connection they make. The stakes are incredibly high. The acceleration of time perceived in the heart is the warning light. It signals Dajjal is succeeding in transforming the person from a free agent into a controlled machine.
Right. So, okay, if the problem is abandoning the sacred system, which then leads down this path towards becoming an automaton, unable to think or choose, what's the way out? How do you escape this trap? What's the path back to internal freedom, according to these sources?
Well, the sources are quite clear on this too. They state that Allah, God, will always leave a door open for escape. There's always a way back. And that solution, they claim, is found specifically within the Quran.
Okay, in the Quran, but how? What's the actual mechanism for healing this?
The mechanism detailed is very specific. It's the correct and proper recitation of the Quran. They call it tilawatul Quran.
Tilawatul Quran, so recitation.
Yes, but the correct recitation, the source emphasizes this point. This specific proper recitation is said to act like a medicine for the heart. It heals it, restores its proper spiritual rhythm, and once the heart is healed, that perception of time moving too fast, the year feeling like a month, it just resolves itself. It goes away.
And crucially, this recitation also does something else, right? It actively blocks Dajjal.
Correct. It blocks Dajjal's attempt to destroy that internal freedom. It restores your ability to think for yourself, to choose for yourself. It's essentially presented as the direct counteragent to the lavage de cerveau, the brainwashing.
What I found really fascinating, though, was the scope of the invitation offered in the source material. It explicitly says this isn't just a message for Muslims, it's for everyone. Christians, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, every human being.
Yes. The source is very open about that. It says, look, if people from other backgrounds perceive time moving faster, and if they can't fix it using their own spiritual tools, their own religious traditions, if the feeling persists, then they are invited to come to the Quran.
But there's a condition, isn't there? A specific theological point non-Muslims need to accept to get this benefit, this healing. If the core issue is just freedom versus automation, why bring in this specific requirement?
Well, it seems to tie back directly to the source of the healing power itself. The condition mentioned is that the person must accept that the Quran is the word of the one God. The argument presented is that if you just see the Quran as, say, philosophy or an interesting old book, it won't work as a healing mechanism. The power to fix the heart's rhythm, to block Dajjal's influence, that comes, in their view, from acknowledging its divine origin. Without that fundamental acceptance, the healing power remains, well, inert, inactive.
Okay, so if we try and connect all these threads, bring it together, this deep dive has shown how this specific ancient prophecy about time speeding up isn't interpreted as physics changing. Not at all. It's seen as this incredibly sensitive spiritual barometer.
A barometer reflecting whether you're adhering to what's seen as a divinely ordered fixed system, the 2930-day lunar month, versus just uncritically accepting a man-made variable system, the 28 to 31-day Gregorian calendar.
And the core conflict driving all this isn't just about calendar details, it's existential.
Absolutely. It's framed as a battle between genuine internal freedom, having that self-directed will, the ability to think and choose, and becoming this spiritually passive, uncritical automaton, the Jasad.
So we've explored the, frankly, shocking prophecy of time collapsing inwards. We looked at the idea of spiritual warfare being waged through, of all things, calendar systems, and the incredibly high stakes of perception. Either you succumb to brainwashing, the lavage de cerveau, or you fight for your internal freedom, potentially through recitation.
And this naturally leads to a pretty important question for you, the listener, to think about. If we take this core idea that the feeling of time accelerating might be a sign of losing internal control, setting aside the specific religious interpretations for a moment, what other things, maybe non-calendar habits or modern systems or even technologies, might you be uncritically accepting? Things that might be perhaps subtly robbing you of your capacity to think clearly and choose freely for yourself.
Yeah, when are you operating on autopilot, like the automaton? And when are you truly exercising that self-directed will?
It's really a question of agency versus automation. And it feels very relevant for today, not just something from 1400 years ago, something to mull over.